So I have a story. You're going along. You are conquering. You are winning. Your realm is glorious. Everything is going great. You're rich. Your army is big. Your neighbors can do nothing but bend the knee to you. But then you die. And then your realm splits. You lose half your territory or more. You lose all those important holdings that you had built up. And now all of a sudden, you're broke, you're poor, your army's broken, and your neighbors are knocking on your door. Well, today we're going to talk about this little topic and this little problem, and that's secession. We're going to discuss what is secession, what laws exist, and how can you deal with it. Some emergency ways you can deal with it that aren't so great, and some good ways to both proactively and reactively deal with your secession problems. All right, so as we look at the interface here, we're going to all be dealing mostly with the secession tab here. Now let's reach by going to your realm and then going to secession. Now, underneath secession, we'll start by going over what are the secession laws? How does our realm break apart? Well, under secession laws, we have a few of them, and we are on the worst one right now. Confederate partition. Basically, everything at the top are the horrible partitions. They're the ones you want to get out of as soon as possible. They're the ones causing you the problems. The ones on the bottom, they're manageable and they will not cause you problems. Now, if you're playing under the multi-heir laws, you will need this video. This video will help you out a lot. If you're under the single realm heirs, there will be a couple nice tidbits in this video for you, but honestly, all your problems go away. Once you get into the single realm heirs, yeah, everything's good. Everything's golden. What are the laws? Well, we have Confederate partition. So Confederate partition is going to distribute all of your land to all of your heirs within the gender preference that you have for your secession laws, which we'll look at in a second. Now, what this means is that if you have two sons and you're on male gender preference, it's going to split all of your titles. But there is one caveat to that. If you can create a title and give that to your heir, then the game will automatically create it. So this becomes very dangerous. This means that you have to watch out. And as we go through and we discuss the pyramid of titles, you'll notice that you have to really pay attention to which titles you can create and avoid being able to create titles that could potentially split your realm. Confederate partition is mostly where your realm will get split up, and you will lose half of your realm or more of your realm. Partition is like Confederate partition, except for it doesn't have that creation part. So what this means is that they'll be evenly distributed between the heirs, but the titles won't be created, which allows you to have a little bit more freedom with your wars and what territory you conquer. High partition is just like partition, except for rather than evenly divided, the majority of the titles, the lion's share of the titles, will go towards your primary heir. Primogeniture is your eldest child will inherit all your titles. So they are not split, just your oldest child inherits. Ultramogeniture is your youngest child inherits. And generally, if I want one of these two, more often than not, I want primogeniture. And the reason why is because generally I would like the more experienced, the more educated, the closer to adulthood, right? There is the disaster scenario where you're an ultramogeniture and all of a sudden you have a baby, right? And then you die. Oh, that would be a disaster, right? Even worse is that you die in childbirth. Then all of a sudden your youngest child takes the throne and you're ruling with the baby. Not ideal. And then house seniority honestly, I've never seen a purpose to using this. I don't understand why anyone would select this law. Basically, the oldest house member, not dynasty member, oldest house member inherits the titles. So this could have a lot of ping-ponging between your realm, and as you're trying to do your eugenics project to get as many of the positive inheritable traits in your bloodline, this will ping-pong you around. Now, what you could use this for is if all of a sudden your main line has lost some traits, you could jump over to another line that has more traits in it. So this could have some use, but honestly, I've never actually used this. I can see that one scenario, but I've never used this title. Most of the time I'm playing around in the multiple realm heirs, doing all the achievement runs. Most of that's done through the partition laws. Okay, so that's the primary law. That's your primary succession law. Your next one that you have is your gender preference. And there are 5 different gender preferences, and I would only recommend ever using 2 of them. The other 2 could cause you issues, or sorry, math, right? The other 3 could cause you issues, and and 2 of them could cause you real big issues. Okay, so the first is male only. So females will never be able to inherit your realm or your titles. So only your sons would be able to inherit the realm. Male preference. So anytime there's a male heir, they will they will split the inheritance. If there are no male heirs, it'll default to your female heirs. Equal. Everybody's equal, and unlike gender equality under your religion, you do not want gender equality here. This causes a massive amount of issues with your with the amount of children that you have and the ability to have children, because the more children you have, the more succession issues you have to deal with, especially when you're in those partition laws. So be very careful with this one. The next one is female preference. Exact opposite of male preference. Your female heirs will inherit, or your daughters will inherit your titles, and your sons will inherit if there are no daughter, if you don't have any daughters. And then of course, the same as male only, female only your daughters would inherit the titles. So equal, never use. Ever use. This will cause you massive succession issues, and will just every problem that we discuss and solutions to it will just exacerbate those issues, and you should avoid equal. Unless you're doing a meme. If you're going for it and you just want to do a playthrough, a feel good gender equality one, 100% support it. But the support doing that sort of playthrough and having fun with it, but you're going to cause a lot of issues, which could be a lot of fun. But if you're looking to min-max, don't use equal. Male only and female only. These sound good, but they're not. And the reason why is because you want your main line inheriting all of your titles. Especially if you're min-maxing your renown, you're marrying your other house members off to have lots of children. So you're giving them fecund traits, you're giving them beauty traits, right? As your primary traits, increasing their fertility, getting as many kids as you can to get that 100 character cap within your dynasty. So you do not want to run into those massive splits and cause further succession issues by jumping lines, right? And that's what this will cause you, is that you won't be able to inherit with your daughters, right? So having your daughter as a heir in male preference might be better, or your sons in female preference would be the better path to go down, rather than having jumping to another line within your dynasty. So yeah, male preference and female preference are definitely the laws that I recommend here. Depending on your situation, those could be well. In order to change all these laws, you have to have your powerful vassals' approval to keep them happy. It's another reason just to keep your powerful vassals happy, is they will help you when you need to decide succession. All right, and then you have designate heir. Designate heir is really powerful. It's expensive, but it's powerful. Now, the first thing that causes it to be expensive is you have to get all the way to absolute crown authority. So you have to deal with a -30 opinion from your direct vassals, which means that you're less likely, like for example, this guy would be -1 for me. So you're less likely to be able to change your laws, and you need the powerful vassal's opinion to designate your heir. Okay, so to get all the way to absolute crown authority, you're going to need to spend a lot of prestige to make it all the way through and up your crown authority. Then you're going to have to spend an additional 1,000 prestige to designate your heir. The great thing about this is that if what your law is telling you is your primary heir is not actually the best heir that you have, you can really control who gets the title, right? Like if you have a intelligent primary heir, but a genius secondary heir, let's get that genius on the crown. All right, below all the laws and your designation of the heirs is how bad is your situation? And as you can tell with this one, it is bad. So yeah, with this current playthrough, I selected it because our current situation is bad. Now, our heir is 39 years old, so unless he dies from battle or someone murders him or he gets bad luck and gets deathly ill, gets infirm or something like that, we're probably good. But we're not in a great situation, and we've already dealt with this ruler before, is that we had Bavaria break off because of secession. So we had half of our kingdom, or half of our realm, we lost it. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to say, okay, these are the titles. This is your primary heir here. This is the titles that your primary heir is going to get. So you can get the Kingdom of East Francia, the Duchy of Bavaria, and then these 3 counties. And those 3 counties are right in and around this duchy right here. And then my second daughter is going to get the Kingdom of Bavaria and then 3 counties. And that is the most equitable division between our rulers. All right, so the next thing we need to talk about is the titles. And in a partition, how are those titles going to be handled? Okay, so in Crusader Kings 3, there are 5 different tiers of titles that you can hold. There is your Empire title. So this is the biggest title that you can have. It is an Empire title. You can have your Kingdom tier titles. Okay, so most empires are divided into usually 3 to 5 kingdoms, I believe that it is. Yeah, about 3 to 5 kingdoms. Yeah, so about 3 to 5 kingdoms. And then each kingdom is divided up into a series of duchies. Now, there can be a lot of duchies, or there could be a few duchies. And with the kingdoms, there is even a scenario where a kingdom title has a single duchy and a single county within that duchy, and that is the Isle of Man, which is not a kingdom yet in this playthrough. And then each duchy is further divided into a series of counties. And that's hidden right there. There are all of our counties in the world. There's a lot of them. And between 3 to 6 is usually how many counties each duchy has. So when you go through and you go to divide up your realm, the first thing that it says is that the first thing that the secession rule code says is, how many heirs do you have? All right, in this scenario, we have 2 heirs. Then it asks, in your titles, how many empire titles do you have? None. In this case, we have no empire titles, so it would move on to the next level, and it says, okay, how many kingdom titles do you have? I have 2 in this case. And it says, okay, well, let's evenly divide up those titles. We're going to bring your primary title, which in this case is Kingdom of East Francia, and we are going to give that to your primary heir. Then we're going to give the secondary kingdom to your secondary heir, to your second daughter. Okay, and then it goes on down the line. It says, okay, how many duchies do you have? Well, we only have one duchy. We've actually only created one, so it's like, okay, well, let's give this to your primary heir, right? If there is ever an odd split, it will start with your primary heir, and it'll give the first title to them. Then your secondary heir will get the second title, and then your tertiary heir will get the third title. So if you have one title, only your primary heir will get that level of title. If you have two titles, then only your primary and secondary would. If you have three, then it would give more. All right, and once you move from Confederate partition, crude partition, and then finally high partition, the difference with high partition is that division is going to first divide the titles in half. So, and then it is going to give your primary heir half of those titles at that level. So, and then it will divide the rest of the titles to the rest of your heirs. Usually you skip right by a high partition. So I'm not going to cover it much in this one, because usually when you get high partition, you also get your primogenitor. So usually, rather than bothering with high partition, I just jump to the single heir. Okay, and then it goes through and it says, okay, now that we've split up the duchy tiers, now at this point, the primary heir is getting a kingdom title and a duchy title, and the secondary secondary heir is just getting a kingdom title. It says, how many county titles do we have? It says, okay, well, we have 6 county titles. So what it does at that point is it looks at, okay, well, what is the capital? Okay, and this is the capital. So that one has to go to your primary heir. So that is why this is the first one given out to my heir, is because despite it being this second one in the list here, it's actually the primary title, because that's where my capital sits. Okay, then it evenly distributes the titles. Now, because she is getting the Kingdom of Bavaria, she will get the lion's share, except for this one county. She will get all the counties within the Kingdom of Bavaria. And because of the way that we played this game, this would be a huge issue for us, because all of our development has gone into those ones. Okay. The danger of Confederate partition is, if I had another kingdom title here, and I don't right now. Let's take a look over here. Let's pop up kingdoms. I'll probably close here, yeah. So I'm one away. If I created if I conquered one more county in Pomerania, I would be able to create this title. What would happen is, if I had a third daughter, it would create this title, and it would give the Kingdom of Pomerania to my third daughter. So that would be a huge issue. We would lose a ton of vassals that we have over in this area, right? And we don't want that. And the reason why we don't want that is because this is helping us to our total soldiers. And having all these vassals over here adds to the amount of levies that we have, that we probably don't want to actually use those levies, but we just want them to have them around so the AI doesn't bully us around. Going into secession, if we lose all this land and our total soldiers drop, any active factions that we have, right, all of a sudden, so these two want independence from our lead, or from us, right? Now they're over in here, so this faction would go away. But in this case, they currently have faction militia power of 25%. And they need 80%. If this dropped by losing all this territory in this kingdom, all this territory in this kingdom, we would lose about we'd lose about 2/3 of our realm through that secession, which could drop our soldiers by 2/3. Now all of a sudden, that 25% is really close to that 80% threshold, right? So you got to be very careful with your secession. And at this point, if one of my vassals took over or conquered another county, or something along that line happened where I could create the title, how do I handle that? I have two options for you on how to handle. You can create a title and you're in Confederate partition. 3 options. Sorry, I have 3 options for you on how to deal with that. Okay, so the first option is we can rush an empire title. Once we have a tier above that, once we have a single empire title, we can go through and we can give that kingdom away. It's not a big deal. That kingdom still reports to an emperor, so it does not gain independence. It's only if they have equivalent title to you do they gain independence. Since you are an emperor, since your primary heir is an emperor, they would not gain independence from you. The second option that you have, because this isn't always an option, if we actually take a look before we move in there, I need another 13 counties to get this emperor title, which means I'm going to have to continue my war against Frisia or Lithuania. And as you can see, the only other little bit is down here in Italy. My options are limited on who I can attack and how effectively I can attack. It will be pretty close to whether we can get this or not. The other option that we have is to found a new empire. And this is something we can do. So basically we need one of the two of these. We need either realm size over 120, which we qualify for, or we need 3 kingdom titles, which we could get easily, and over a realm size of over 80, which we already have. So we can already do this. But this is expensive. I'm sure that you could just see 1,200 gold and you are just watching all of that gold go out that could do stuff like build that could upgrade your buildings and buy new men at arms, or there's so much that this could do. It's you don't want to do this, right? So yeah, we don't want to do this. The prestige, that's pretty easy to get. The piety, that's easy to get. That's only 1 pilgrimage. But again, a pilgrimage probably going to cost you 300 to 400 gold, and you have your 1,200 gold on top of that. And then of course you're going to need to do all of your wars or hunts or stuff like that. This is a very expensive decision, and generally is not something that you want. You also need exalted among them. Take a look at this. We are at illustrious. That means that we would need to, we're almost at illustrious. We need to get through illustrious and get another 4,000 fame on top of the 226 that we need right now. Yeah, so on top of that 226 that we need right now, 126. Up by 100. 126. We need another 4,000 on top of that fame to get to exalt among men. So this is expensive. This would be hard for us to get in our current situation. Our best option at this point would be to go after the Germania Emperor. The second option that you have is to proactively do it. So the second option that you have is to move into absolute crown authority, and that will prevent your vassals from conquering other territory in there. This is not ideal. This is expensive to get through. You need a lot of prestige, and this is going to cause a lot of issues. But the other problem is that this is not always available to you. So more than likely, you will be outside of Confederate partition if you have that innovation, if you're able to put through either high crown authority or absolute crown authority. And the reason why is because you need this right here. You need royal prerogative to get this, and also on this level is heraldry rule. Now anytime you come in here, I would recommend that if you're in Confederate partition, immediately do heraldry rule and get this ASAP, right? This will allow you to get to can enact partition, and you don't need high or absolute crown authority to enact that law. You just need limited crown authority, which you already have. So yeah, generally that option, while possible, is not a realistic one, I would say. The other one, and the one that I love doing, absolutely love doing, is say this guy right here. The guy reports to me. He's a nice little vassal. What I can do is I can come in here and I can just grant him independence. And then I can't create the title anymore, right? That solves my secession issue. So as long as you're on top of your secession issues, you don't have to worry about it. All right, so we have an empire, but we're still in a bit of an issue, because let's say that we rush an empire and we get that, and we're still we get to a point where we're no longer dividing our realm. We're still in a bit of an issue. And the reason why we're in a bit of an issue, because the lion's share of our good counties are going to our secondary daughter. So how do we handle this? The first option that we have is the one that I like doing all the time, is I don't want her getting this title, right? So what I can do is I can go after this title. So what I would do is I would start conquering these, right? I'd start conquering these, and despite her being of young age, betroth her before you do this. But despite her being young age, go and give her all this land, right? Attack these and give this land, and give that land until you can create and give her the empire or the kingdom title here. And that way, the Bavarian title, it should calculate to go to your primary heir. For splitting kingdoms, there is another option I just thought of. When I was in here, I just thought of the secondary option that you can use. And this is one I don't use that often. So because it is a bit unstable and it can cause you issues, is you could add a law, and you could add a elective law to this title. And that means that the rulers of underneath that title would elect the successor to that title. Now, if you control all of the titles under there, this is very stable. If you don't control all the titles, then it can become a bit of a headache to have to micromanage, making sure that everybody wants the heir you want on that throne, right? Generally, I don't do this because it's just a bit of an issue unless you own all those titles. The only time I've actually done this, usually I destroy any elective laws that I run across on any title that I conquered. The only time that I've used this is while I'm working on the Saga and Stone achievement, to cheesing the system of building as many stones as I can. That's the only time that I've ever done it. But yeah, that's why I forgot about this as the solution. So if you could make it so that your heir inherits each Francia, and then this one is elected to your primary heir, then you're fine. So that is the really nice way to deal with it, with all these extra titles underneath my current title. So any additional duchies, any additional county, and also that pesky kingdom title, right? As long as you get her 6, just like we have 6 counties, or you give up some of your counties, right? Like, for example, if I take a look in here, I don't really need this one. I'm just holding on to it because it's holding. So if I got rid of this, I only need to give her 5 counties, right? So that is my primary way of dealing with partition and Confederate partition, is to make sure that I am not in a situation where my top level tier, I have multiple now violated on this play turn. And I've violated because I'm trying to rush that Empire title. If I can get that Empire title, I'm golden. If I can't get that Empire title, in this particular playthrough here, it isn't that big of a deal, because my wife still has 6 years of childbearing age. I'm 39. So as long as she has a single son, this solves itself because I'm in male preference. But let's say I was in female preference and I am looking at a situation where I have 2 daughters, but I only have 1 son. You can switch to male preference as long as you're in gender equality. And this goes back to why I say, and the shirt's available on my website, why I say gender equality, real men maxers support gender equality in CK3, because it opens so many options for you. So what I have done before, and I've done this both for eugenic reasons, and I've done it for succession issues, is I could switch. If I was in a situation with female preference, I could switch to male preference, right? I can go over to my son and just solve, because there's only one of them, and solve all those issues, right? And then I would ideally marry someone that is infertile. Make sure they're infertile. If you're a female ruler, this becomes a bit more difficult. You may want to wait until you're infertile, because just because it says the male's infertile doesn't mean they are. How many of our friends joke around about their vasectomies failing, right? So we could switch the preference, and that would immediately cause us issues. Now, of course, we're Catholic. Catholics, unfortunately, are male-dominated. This means that we cannot change to female preference. We do not have an equal doctrine. I don't like playing Catholics. Everybody gets angry at you when you change your religion. So yeah, that is something that you can do. Is if you're an equal preference, you can switch your gender preference, which is great for eugenic reasons. If you all of a sudden have a son that is really good and your daughters suck, or if you have a really good daughter and your son suck, you can switch back and forth as you need to and get the ruler that you need to. If you were in an emergency situation, and once in a while you can come in here. I do not recommend this, and you can disinherit. The reason why I do not recommend this is sometimes it causes stress depending on what you're doing. This is a unique situation. If compassionate and forgiving are virtues, they may be attractive to like a Catholic ruler, right? So the losing of opinion, I wouldn't really worry about that. That'll solve itself over time. But the problem is that the prestige cost is high, and even worse, the renown cost is absolutely ridiculous. 150 is a lot of renown, even though we only have 2,100 renown. At the growth of just under 8, we are looking at around just under 20. It's about 18-19 months to regenerate the renown that we want, right? Or that we lost from the disinheriting. So that isn't ideal. The other thing you can do is ask to take vows. Okay. So of course they need to accept it. They would have to be the primary heir, or being the primary heir. It's not unlikely that they're going to be able to. If they're betrothed, that causes negatives. There are a lot of things that cause negatives. The option that you have after this is to arrest them. Once you arrest them, you can force them to take vows. Okay, so this is the better of the option. If you don't have that option, not all religions allow you to force them to take vows. Is you can banish them, and banishing them generally gets them outside of inheritance. I don't know if this is a bug. It kind of seems like a bug to me that it kicks them out of inheritance. So I don't know if this is going to be fixed. I don't know if that was a situation that I ran into where banishment caused them to be kicked out of inheritance. But yeah, so be careful with that one, because it doesn't seem, the banishment aspect of it seems wrong to me. So that's why I don't recommend that you go down that route. The other thing that you can do, of course, is you can get rid of them. And by get rid of them, I mean murder them or imprison them. Issue is with murdering and imprisoning is all depends on what your kinslaying law is under your religion, on how bad of a secret that is, and you can cause huge issues in your dynasty. Even if kinslaying is accepted, you can cause issues in your dynasty. If you kill a member of a dynasty that gives you massive negative opinion modifiers, your dynasty has claims on your titles. So be very careful about that, because that could lead to factions within your claimant factions within your realm targeting you. So generally, disinheriting and murder are not ways that I like to deal with Confederate partition. I honestly would rather reconquer the realm, reconquer those holdings and those titles, than actually deal with the potential of losing all my titles, right? And having claimant factions. Now, as I said before, the only thing that you're really going to want on the single realm heirs, the only thing that you're really going to be doing is designating your heir. So once you get to single realm inheritance, you're golden. Now, mind you, to get there, you're going to need to be in the high medieval period. It's going to be quite late in the game. It's going to be at least 10, 50, you're at least 200, you're about 200 years into the game. So you're going to be quite far into your realm at that point. And you probably already have your empire title. You're probably already out of Confederate partition. You're just dealing with, at that point, you're just dealing with your partition issues, right? That's all that you're really dealing with, which are manageable. It's the Confederate partition that is the really difficult ones to manage. As long as you don't create the titles and you destroy all the titles in partition, you're golden, and then give away the land, as much land as you can, to your other children, you'll be fine. There are indirect ways that you can kill off an heir. So if I wanted her to, there are a few things you want to do. First thing is that anytime that you like your primary heir, immediately go into your knight interface, look for them. Now they're not going to be in here because we're on male preference, and forbid them from being your knight. Your heirs, your primary heir will always die as a knight. I'm pretty sure somewhere buried in the code, Paradox probably will not admit it, but there are probably like a plus 100% chance to dying if you're the primary heir, right? Just to mess with you. It's not that bad, but it seriously, it does seem like there's an increased chance if they're your primary heir that they die in battle. But what you can do is you can let your secondary heirs be in battle. The other thing, and I have not been successful at doing this, however, I have heard of people being successful at doing this, is you can force your other children of being you can force them to be a knight, and then what you do is you declare war on someone. Now let's go through and raise just quickly. We'll just play a couple days here. This is a current streaming playthrough, so I don't want to play too much. Okay, so I have everybody raised here. Now let's say that I have my son in here, or we have our secondary heir in here. What I can do is I can split off a new one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select whichever one is my son or my heir, and I'm going to send some levies in with him. Right? Okay, I'm going to send that heir off, right? And I am going to charge them headlong into another army. And raiders would be great for this, right? Charge them headlong in, and hopefully my heir or my child gets injured and dies. That you can kill off your heir without getting Kinslayer. Is there an event for your children to go visit another realm's court? Send them off there. Never send your primary heir there, but send your kids off. There's a chance that they're going to drown there, right? So yeah, definitely that is an option, is to send them off there. This is a bit sporadic and isn't guaranteed to happen. So when you're doing these sort of strategies to try to kill off your heirs through these alternative methods, make sure that you have a long time. Make sure that you're in a healthy situation, right? Make sure you have the runway. Oh, I took over to 40 there. Make sure you're feeling fine. Make sure that there's no murder plots against you. That you have good spy master and that you have a good physician. Just make sure you're in a good situation so that you're realmed it, so that all of a sudden you don't die. Now, in this particular playthrough, I have two strategies that I'm working on. I'm going for the Empire title. Even once my heir takes over, I need this. It just makes things easier. And the other one that I'm going after is having a son. As soon as I have a single son, I solve this issue. So what I'm going to be doing for this particular playthrough is, if she does not have a son by the time that she's 45, I will probably look at divorcing her and basically doing what King Henry did, right? Divorcing her, having another heir, or having another child, and continue until I have a son. Now, as long as you're proactive, let me pop up here. As long as you're proactive, partition isn't as hard to deal with as what you would, what it looks like when you're going in there. You just have to be on top of it, and you have to properly manage it. Through granting of titles, generally you can really avoid any of the nasty secrets or the things that are going to destabilize your realm, or losing your renown, which is something that when you get later on in the game, your renown is something that you want to keep up on as you fight Empire versus Empire. Your legacy traits could come into give you advantage, and also they'll give you advantage with your eugenics project, with your education, of your just making sure that you're step up and above everybody else as you're moving through. So definitely, as long as you're proactive, as long as you're on top of it, it's definitely something that is manageable, both Confederate partition and partition. If you're going through doing achievement runs and stuff like that, you're going to spend a lot of time dealing with this. A ton of time. Most of the achievements are within the era of partition. So there's and frankly, it's a lot more fun to play in partition. It amps up the difficulty of the game, and that's something that is an issue at this point, is that we don't have further difficulties in the game. I'm hoping with Royal Court that they come out with increased difficulties, because it would be nice. I have played with the mod increased difficulties. It's fun. It's definitely a fun mod, and definitely causes a bit of issues. But I think that there are better ways than just do what the mod did to cause some increased difficulties. One thing that isn't something that I think would be good is like amping up damage and stuff like that on the enemy armies. But that is going to be it for today. Please let me know in the comments if there were any tricks of the trade that you use that haven't discussed here, or what your favorite strategy is for dealing with secession. I'm very interested to hear different people's opinions, and maybe we can find even better ways to min-max secession, right? With that, I'm going to leave you there. If you are at this point of the video and you have not hit that subscribe button, you are seriously dedicated. Without subscribing, hit that subscribe button. I have lots more content coming out for Crusader Kings 3 and tutorials. I also have some new tutorials that I'm planning for a game in early access that I'm very excited about. All right, Krovkin from the future here. Supposedly my dogs were quite excited about the game as well, and for the end of my footage. So you have yourself a good night, good day, or good morning wherever you are.